Most professionals and certainly most retail investors don't have a concept, the real heart of it. We're only just starting to see now what has been festering for a lot of years. And anybody that thinks that it's just going to be one comment from a premier or a president and we return back to normal, I think is going to be sadly mistaken.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for April 8th through April 15th, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, we feature 2025 1-ounce silver Canadian maples at just $3.49 over spot per ounce. Constitutional or junk silver is just $1.99 over spot per ounce. 1/10 ounce Platinum Britannia are just $29 over melt, and 1/10 ounce Gold Britannia are only $27 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend Peter Grandich from Peter Grandich and Company. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. It's been very boring this last week, so I'm glad I had somebody to talk to.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's quite a boring week here, not much going on. But all kidding aside, I did want to ask you about what your take was on the plunge in markets over the last week and a half, the huge rally we saw on Wednesday, the sell-off in gold, and now gold's popping back, a new all-time highs above 3,200. What do you make of all of this?
You know, the complacency still on both sides of the coin, the bulls and bears in the markets, is amazing. $100 update in gold, that used to be a dream. And, we had it, and then we didn't get it yesterday. It was only up 80 something. There were people actually disappointed. It's like, and then I see the same on the other side. I see credit markets imploding and people going, yeah, that doesn't really matter. It's stock market matters. I say the stock market is so small compared to the credit market. It's part of the overall picture, which has kept me so defensive and bearish this last few years, because I still don't think most professionals and certainly most retail investors don't have a concept, the real heart of it. We're only just starting to see now what has been festering for a lot of years. And anybody that thinks that it's just going to be one comment from a premier or a president and we return back to normal, I think is going to be sadly mistaken.
And why is that? I know we've talked about this before, that it seems like there are a lot of fundamental issues. The tariffs aren't really even one of the issues that we've talked about before, and it might not even be the fundamental problem. It could just be a triggering event in some sense. Would that be your view, that kind of this, sell-off in the stock market possibly turning into a crash, it seemed kind of inevitable? It just was what was going to trigger it.
Well, but I'll tell you what even more is concerning to me, quite frankly. I always speak the truth with you. Nothing should be any different this time. Yeah, the tariff thing is real critical in the world and manufacturing. But we had this guy come in who happens to be the richest man in the world, just spends a couple months looking at the books of the United States, and he basically showed us that they're cooked, and they've been cooked forever by both sides of the aisle, and it's probably trillions of dollars, and half the people are mad at the guy that he did this, and that they're going to try to destroy his business and hurt any assets that he had, cars that are made by him and all. That's why I talk about that people still have not come to a grasp of the sins. I've said for quite a while that America entered its worst ever economic, social, and political era. And this is just further proof that somebody comes in, and instead of people going, he's right, how did all these senators and Congress people on both sides of the aisle go in with nothing and leave or still there and have tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth? That should be the story that's bigger than tariffs. And it's all part of what I also believe happens on Wall Street, is what I've always coined, it's called the don't worry, be happy crowd. That the cup is always half full. You can toss, I'm absolutely convinced of this. Most advisors could be tossed off the Empire State Building and all the way down. They'll all say the same thing. Hey, so far, so good. It's just the attitude and that's what helped us get to this point here. No one's kicking, instead of blaming Trump. Some people are mad at Trump. Some people blaming the Chinese and all. How about the fact that we as a country allowed our destiny to be put in other people's hands financially? All the indebtedness we had to be financed by outside sources, manufacturing. This didn't just happen yesterday. The Chinese haven't just been doing this for the last year. They've been doing it for decades with our consent. Glad, because big corporate America could go over there, pay very cheap for labor, make the big profits, and pay their CEOs $500 million a year in salaries and all. No one wants to talk about that part. And also, so I think that no matter what happens, and I do think, and I don't want to take away from where you may be going, Elijah and Few, I do think next week will be used as an excuse week because it's a thinly traded week, especially by Wednesday or Thursday. But I don't think we've seen the end of this. And I think this picture is going to become even more volatile as the weeks and months ahead come about.
More volatility is concerning, obviously, given that we saw the biggest up move in the stock market since 2008 on Wednesday there, and then the next day it's down. The Dow's down another 1,000 points. So, what do you make of this kind of seesaw, or this whiplash that it seems like maybe a lot of investors are going through right now?
Well, it also goes to show you that how really it wasn't as secure as it was in the happier times that people told you. Because if everything was half as good as the don't worry, be happy crowd has led people to believe for years, there wouldn't be all this anxiety and fluctuation. The problem is that a couple of nights ago, while we were sleeping, at least most of us were sleeping, the world started to implode in the credit market. And that was one of the reasons that led, I think, Trump to kind of cave somewhat on his original plans and thinking. And we're still not out of the woods on that by any means at all. But it's just this combination of just for years of neglect, from robbing Peter to pay Paul, for believing that more things equal more happiness. You and I get into this. We talk about our faith and all the errors, all the biblical teachings have demonstrated that if you didn't listen to the biblical teachings, you would end up on what we're now seeing now. So it's somewhat frustrating because you're like a lone voice. Not that there aren't other people that have been bearish, but in my industry, in the planning and all, there's very few people that openly wear their faith on their sleeve in their work. And this is understood. If you understand biblical teachings and teachings of the church, this is not hard to come by, to see that we're in this kind of position and all. And what infuriates me, just so you know, and this will probably cause some anti-Musk person to look me up and bomb my car now, but here's a man, he's the richest man in the world. He doesn't need any of this. He could go sit on islands, do whatever he wants. And he decides to go and try to save, which has now become his country, by looking at it from skills that he has financially. And he finds just tremendous thievery, and half the people want to kill him. So it says to me that whatever happens in the future, it's almost like we almost, I don't want to say deserve it, but we had it coming to us because we have it staring right in our face now. And that is not the biggest thing that we should all be up in arms, no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
So again, fundamentally, it seems like you're saying, it doesn't matter necessarily what Trump says from here or what one world leader says from here, or a news network, puts out a new report or whatever. We're going further down in the stock market and probably higher in precious metals because it's the fear trade at this time, and we're going into a crisis. Is that your view?
My view is this. The next 10%, which can happen now in a matter of hours, it's no longer weeks and months and years that it used to be, will all be based on what comments are made from what side or what have you. But what I think is really critical for people to look at here, how did most people, probably not your clients, I'm singing to the choir here, and I'm not singing because it's you, I'm just stating fact, but how did most investors missed the best investment over the last 25 years. That's been gold. And even if you look at when I said in 2021, when I decided and I shared with my followers and clients, hey, I just think if you want capital appreciation, it's not going to be found in stocks and bonds. It's going to be in gold. Forget all the other reasons, just that it's going to be able to make more money than stocks and bonds. How did 97 or 98 or 99% of financial advisors who have really no exposure or so little exposure to it, how did they miss that? Why did they miss it? And why aren't their clients saying to them, why did gold go to 3,200? How come I don't have any part of it all? Because gold has proven once again, for what you and your father and people like you, other companies that do what you do, been saying for decades, it's the only true storer of value and protection when all hell breaks loose that brings the safety and peace of mind. And that's what you could take a run around the bases for how young you are. But I know for these years that you've been in it, that's what you try to share with people. And yet, even now, despite all of that, it's still laughed at and frowned upon. It still gets 30 seconds on the financial network because one guy happens to be half bullish on it. It's just an amazing phenomenon. And you would think that your office or whatever would be overrun by people now, given what they've seen, what's transpired. And yet, most people are just hoping that they can get back in stocks and bonds and still aren't considering gold as at least what we've always said it is the insurance that you hope never have to be called upon to be used.
And now when it comes to, I guess, what the big money is doing, we've talked about this on previous episodes, but we saw huge outflows, from London of gold over to the US. We've seen huge outflows from the COMEX of gold and silver. Your take on this, and also, I guess, why is it so much right now that people are bidding up the price of gold when it seems like silver is lagging a bit? We're seeing a 100-to-1 gold-silver ratio, which we've only seen once in human history before in 2020. It seems like silver is still lagging, so it's not like the public is jumping in at this moment.
Well, first, and I want to get to silver because you'd be surprised. Well, you might not because you read my stuff, but something that I did with silver that I haven't done in quite some time. So I think it's important to take a step back. The Secretary Treasurer said this before all this tariff stuff started. He made a very good point. He said that the top 10% of wealthy people in the United States own 86% of the assets, stocks, bonds. The next 40% own 14%, and half of America owns nothing. They're just indebted. So really what we need to be really looking at is what is that top 10% doing? Because that's who's going to influence what prices do and so forth and so on. What's most interesting, something that I never believed we would see, which we saw more than once already this week, and I will get to silver. We saw stocks down, bonds down, and the dollar down all at the same time. I don't ever remember seeing that in major moves when there was a major move in one of those markets. And only one thing went up, gold. So anybody that wants to tell me, and all the anti-gold people, and this, that's your answer. What gold has replaced the bond market and to some extent the dollar as the place to go for safety, which we've argued for years was the thing to do when you could have bought that insurance for a lot less money. And so to answer your other part, earlier this week, I first came to the conclusion that those who have said silver is manipulated, I absolutely agree with them. In fact, I painted a tinfoil hat on my head and put it out as a picture. Now, most people, including that this is what mostly has come out of Grandich's mouth for decades when he was asked about silver. Silver is like kissing your sister. And my argument always was, you want to own gold first. But you're absolutely right now. The spread between it, and I've never been a big believer in the ratio because there's no set rule for that. That's just looking at the prices over years and years to be extremes. But like you said, other than one other time in the modern era, it hasn't been at this level. And what I think is going to happen, what I think doesn't mean it's going to happen, is there's going to be a quick profit taking in gold. It may come from $500 higher, which could be just a week from now. But we're going to have a very sharp down. And I think next week we're vulnerable because of the thinness of trading as we get closer to the 3 most important days for a lot of us like you and me that will take place during Holy Week. But I also think what will happen is more retail people now will be looking at the metals, and the more the retail is involved, the more likely they'll choose silver versus gold, especially in the discrepancy of the price now. So when silver broke down the other night and was trading between 28 and 29, I shocked. I mean, long-term clients wrote back, said, I mean, an email, Peter, you sure this is true? This is not some artificial intelligence thing that somebody has created for you to actually say you're bullish on silver? But I really think going forward, if you take the price today when we're speaking and the price of gold, I think silver could outperform gold for the rest of the year. I think they're both going to end up higher than where they are now, but I think silver may actually go up more percentage-wise. Part of that is simply because it hasn't performed up until now. It's not the monetary asset like gold is, but I do think it will be, because it's been a cousin of gold, it'll get some of the interest that might have otherwise went into gold, but now those people think gold is just too highly priced for them to be involved with it.
For those maybe not wanting to get more involved in the precious metal markets who have a good amount of gold, do you think swapping gold for silver at the moment might be a good idea?
That's an individual decision. I would say this. I would say that if you were 80 or 90% gold and only 10 or 20% silver, I would look to be more 50-50 now. So if you are somebody that has a lot of gold but not a lot of silver, yeah, I think that swapping, which is probably music to your ears, but the bottom line is I think it's a worthy thing to do if you're going to have interest in the metals. I certainly, for the first time now, seriously look at it in equal terms. And that's a lot for me to say, because I used to get very people upset in the metals community where I could be roaring bullish on gold and not on silver. They couldn't understand why. But I do think it's worthy of that now.
Well, gold has outperformed over the last few years or so. I mean, props to you there in that respect. But now it seems like you're saying, equal weighting, possibly. Again, personal question, so you can't really give any financial advice. But I guess moving forward here, it seems like we have a very interesting situation in the economy, in the stock market, in precious metal markets. But what are some ways that I guess people can protect themselves instead of, in addition to just owning the physical metal, your perspective on mining stocks going forward? Because that can be an interesting thing with the economy going down. Do you still see mining stocks rising in the future?
Well, gold producers are going to be, if they're not started to already, will be among the most talked about for at least the next several weeks to few months. And here's the reason why. Their free cash flow, which was already at records, it's astounding now with gold at 3,200. And two of the biggest costs to run a gold mine, energy, oil, and labor costs, which certainly people are not going to be in a position to seek substantial higher wages, will be flat to down for them. So they're going to print money, and they're going to be printing money at a time when most other sectors and other industries are flat to down in earnings. So I still think the gold producers still have a ways to go. And a barometer, the GDX is breaking out, and even the GDXJ, which is the lower small to mid-size producers and some advanced stage exploration companies. The last to go, of course, still hasn't, but they're starting to muster through volume and are the real junior, highest risky ones. But I still think that market's ahead of them. And the reason I feel good about that is, despite huge sell-offs in the market, even on gold on the particular day that it went down hard, the shares didn't really come down hard, especially the juniors. They're completely washed out. Their trouble to get really going remains not enough of an audience. There's not enough. I continue to argue that industry is a lot smaller than it was 10 or 20 years ago, but their day in the sun is here now. And I'm speaking my own book because that's where a lot of my own personal wealth is. So I obviously I have huge biases in that. But I feel rather comfortable now more than ever sleeping at night with those things than I have in the last 3 to 5 years.
And before I let you go, Peter, I know the Catholic faith is very important to you and myself. This being Holy Week coming up here, any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, we will see trading start to dry up after Wednesday. For me and my wife, our plan is that once Thursday's trading stops, once we go to Thursday night mass through Easter Sunday, that'll be our only focus. That and coming home prayer business will not partake. I think it's an important time. The prayer and hope is that people, because more and more of the world is moving away from our faith, not just from the Catholic perspective, but just Christianity in general, and more people seem to be agnostic or outright atheists. I think to understand what transpired in a week, if you think about, they say in our business, Elijah, you're only good as your last call or your forecast. Well, look at poor Jesus. Came in on a donkey. Sunday, they were laying palms down. And by Friday, they gave him the most horrific way to be murdered that was ever created by mankind. And he was God. So maybe we shouldn't kill ourselves when people send us nasty emails and all, because look what they did to Jesus. But I think it's very, very important, even if you've only been a C&E Catholic, Christmas and Easter, to try to understand what these days are about. I will put out videos on my own blog and post them on my X page as well that will explain each day and what the meaning is behind it. I think it's very, very important to understand what transacted through that period of time, especially when God himself got on his knees and washed other people's feet. And even in the last moments during the most cruelest pain, he turned to his Father and said, forgive them because they know not what they do. I mean, if you just think about it, it's either, I know some people don't believe, I understand that, but it's still a better way to live, the way that we will be focused on. And then, of course, Easter, to understand that the resurrection, that it's not all this, that, if it was just this, it would really stink. And the hope and faith of an eternal life, and an eternal life that'll be a zillion times better than anything that anybody can experience here, even the richest man in the world. I think that's a lot to look forward to. And hopefully whoever's listening to this, if you've fallen away from this or you never really looked at it, good time to try to understand it and to appreciate it. And maybe at this point in time, just say, what, even if I don't know for certain, why don't I just go and sit during a service and all and try to see, I'll ask God, if you're there, try to speak to me. Boy, he loves it when they open that little crack, which I've heard this story so many times, just give him that little space. And I think a lot of people will see their lives change.
Really appreciate that, Peter. Thank you so much for your time today. And if our viewers are interested in learning more, they can go to petergrandich.com. We'll put a link to your X page also, so people can track this with you on Holy Week. Very fantastic that you'll be posting every day there to talk about, Jesus's life and all of that this week. So we really appreciate your time today, Peter. Thank you so much, and God bless, and have a fantastic Holy Week.
And peace be with you, my friend.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for April 8th through April 15th, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, we feature 2025 1-ounce silver Canadian maples at just $3.49 over spot per ounce. Constitutional or junk silver is just $1.99 over spot per ounce. 1 10th-ounce Platinum Britannia are just $29 over melt, and 1 10th-ounce Gold Britannia are only $27 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.